Everyone thinks the Financial District is just Wall Street and office buildings, but the best parts are hiding between the skyscrapers. In the next few minutes, we'll uncover cobblestone alleys, waterfront views, historic corners, great food, and a few spots most visitors walk right past. So, don't just come here for one Wall Street photo. Let's explore the real Financial District. Day 1. New York's historic and financial core. Morning. Charging Bull. Starting out in the Financial District, the very first stop is the famous Charging Bull. You might think hitting this spot early means beating the crowds, but this is New York, a city that rarely hits the pause button. Even early in the morning, visitors are already flooding into this narrow cobblestone median, and the space gets packed before you know it. Seeing the bull in pictures doesn't do it justice at all. I didn't expect it to be anywhere near this big, so standing right next to it catches you completely off guard. It's 7,100 pounds of pure bronze, towering right over the pavement. The crowd around it is pure chaos too. There's no official line. You have people crowding around the front for a headshot, while a completely separate swarm forms at the back just to rub the bull's giant bronze testicles for good financial luck. Everyone is pushing, hovering, and waving selfie sticks to get their shot. The whole reason this beast is even here is a classic New York story. Back in 1989, a sculptor dropped this massive rogue statue right outside the stock exchange in the dead of night, completely without permission. The police actually hauled it away, but locals loved the hustle so much they threw a massive fit until the city brought it back and it found its permanent home. Fearless Girl. Just a short walk away from the bull, right in front of the massive pillars of the New York Stock Exchange, is the Fearless Girl. Seeing her in photos gives the impression that she's this huge monument, but standing right next to her, she's actually tiny, just 4 feet tall. The contrast is incredibly cool, seeing this little bronze figure completely unfazed by the giant high-stakes building she's staring down. She was brought here in 2017 for International Women's Day to promote women's leadership in business, and she became an instant icon. Of course, she can't just walk past without getting the classic photo. There's an actual bronze plaque on the ground with footprints marking where to stand. You step up, throw your hands on your hips, tilt your chin up, and copy her exact stance. It's pretty funny to watch the crowd because every single person in line steps up and does the exact same defiant pose. New York Stock Exchange. Right behind the girl is the absolute powerhouse of Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange. Even if you've never set foot in the city, you instantly recognize those massive Roman columns. I spent an embarrassingly long time trying to figure out where the entrance was before remembering that visitors can't actually go inside anymore. They completely closed the interior to the public after 9/11, so you have to take it all in from the pavement. Standing across the street, you see this massive security barricade guarding the base, while a colossal American flag hangs right across those grand marble pillars. Broad Street is completely pedestrian only, so instead of dodging yellow cabs, you're weaving through a chaotic mix of fast-moving finance workers in sharp suits, and crowds of tourists frozen in the middle of the cobblestones trying to snap a photo. The building itself has been holding down this corner since 1903, and it has a great hidden secret. If you look at those carved figures way up on the roofline, they actually aren't stone. The original marble statues got so heavy that they started cracking and risking falling onto the sidewalk, so they were secretly swapped out for hollow metal replicas decades ago. Federal Hall. I definitely wasn't expecting to run into George Washington in the middle of Wall Street, but there he was, standing on the front steps of Federal Hall and looking straight down into one of the most famous financial streets in the world. This is where Washington took the oath of office and became the first president of the United States. The building itself isn't the original Federal Hall. That one disappeared long ago. The version standing here today dates back to 1842, and those wide stone steps out front act as a massive public hangout spot for the neighborhood. It's a lively scene where you can sit down alongside locals eating lunch from street carts, street performers, and tourists resting their feet under the shadow of the massive columns. I ended up going inside, partly because admission is free, and partly because I was curious. The exhibit focuses on Washington's inauguration, the first Congress, and the period when New York briefly served as the nation's capital. It doesn't take long to see everything, but the big question is, should you actually bother going inside, or just snap a photo from the steps? If you care about history, it's absolutely worth the 10-minute stop just to see the actual Bible Washington used during his oath. But if you aren't a massive history buff, you can easily skip the interior exhibits without feeling like you missed out on the main experience. Insider tip. If you do go inside, walk to the back of the rotunda to check out the heavy iron vault doors built right into the stone walls. In the mid-1800s, this building served as a U.S. sub-treasury and safely stored millions of dollars in gold and silver coin currency right beneath the feet of Wall Street. Trinity Church. By the time I reached Trinity Church, I had already spent the morning surrounded by office towers, stock exchanges, and Wall Street landmarks. Then, this dark brownstone Gothic church appeared right in the middle of it all, squeezed between skyscrapers in a way that almost doesn't look real. The building dates back to 1846 and is one of the oldest historic churches in New York. The architecture is incredible, but I was mostly drawn to the old burial grounds out front. I wanted to see the spot where Alexander Hamilton and his wife Eliza are buried, which is marked by a big white marble monument. Ever since the Hamilton musical became a massive Broadway hit, people have been flocking here to leave pennies, letters, and tokens on his tomb. The foot traffic got so intense that the church actually had to put down stone pathways to keep everyone from trampling the grass. Look closely at the cracked headstones around you. Some of those go back to the late 1600s. It stands out because it's so much open ground right in the prime real estate of Lower Manhattan. You get this striking contrast of hearing birds chirping in the old trees while the heavy rumble of the subway vibrates right under your feet. Even though the cemetery was my main focus, I decided to duck into the church too. After the non-stop loud energy of Wall Street, I wasn't expecting to walk into a space full of people just sitting quietly, sketching, or clearing their heads. The whole room feels like a community agreement to just shut out the chaos of the city for a second. Insider tip. While everyone crowds around Hamilton's white monument in the South Cemetery, look just a few feet to the west. You'll find the monument for Robert Fulton, the guy who invented the first commercially successful steamboat. It has a large bronze medallion on it and gets a fraction of the attention. Wall Street. At some point, every New York movie, news report, or finance documentary mentions Wall Street, so finally standing on it felt a little strange. It looks completely different from what you see on screen. Instead of this grand, sweeping avenue, it's actually this incredibly narrow, deep stone canyon. The skyscrapers are packed so tightly together that they block out the sun, keeping the pavement in a permanent shadow. The street got its name from a literal 12-foot wooden wall built here by Dutch settlers back in the 1600s. The wall disappeared centuries ago, but the name stuck around and somehow became one of the most famous streets in the world. If you look down at your feet, you can actually spot dark granite blocks embedded right into the pavement, tracing the exact line where the old wooden wall used to stand. What I find interesting is that Wall Street doesn't really look the way people imagine it. If somebody dropped you here without telling you where you were, I'd probably pay more attention to the massive columns of the New York Stock Exchange, Federal Hall, or Trinity Church than the street itself. You're weaving past heavy security barricades and hearing the giant American flags flapping loudly above the noise of the crowds. And maybe that's why I liked it. Wall Street isn't really about the pavement, the buildings, or even the few blocks that make up the street. It's the fact that you've heard the name your entire life, and then you get that awesome moment where you're walking along and it hits you. You're actually standing right there. Stone Street. For one of the oldest streets in New York, Stone Street feels remarkably unconcerned with its own history. This was the very first paved street in the city, but today it's just packed with restaurants, Irish pubs, and so many outdoor wooden picnic tables that they take over the entire road. Since cars are completely blocked off, the whole cobblestone block turns into a giant, open-air European beer garden. If you walk by around lunchtime, finding an empty seat is nearly impossible. I loved that nobody stands around reading plaques or taking photos of historic markers here. Instead, people are catching up with friends, splitting pitchers of beer, waiting for food, and enjoying the kind of long lunch that starts with just one drink and somehow keeps going. The cobblestones are still there, the history is still there, but that's not what gives Stone Street its personality. It's the crowd, the loud conversations echoing off the old buildings, that feeling that everyone has collectively decided that they aren't in a hurry for the next hour or two. Late morning, lunch at Adrian's Pizza Bar. I ended up staying right on Stone Street for lunch. The vibe had already won that argument. Adrian's sits right on the cobblestones, so I grabbed a table outside and ordered their old-fashioned square pizza, the one they're famous for. The half-size pan runs about $23 and comes loaded with crushed tomatoes and fresh mozzarella. A few slices in, I completely understood the hype. The crust has this perfect airy crunch to it, the tomato sauce tastes incredibly fresh, and somehow the entire pan disappeared way faster than I expected. All around me, the tables were packed, and people were just lingering over drinks. After a fast-paced morning charting the Financial District, the laid-back energy out here was absolutely perfect. Afternoon, One World Trade Center. One World Trade Center is the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, and after a morning spent exploring Lower Manhattan, I was curious to see what all of it looked like from 100 floors up. The ride to the observatory is incredibly quick. It takes under a minute. Inside the elevator, floor-to-ceiling screens show a digital time-lapse of New York growing from a tiny wooded Dutch settlement into the massive metropolis it is today. When you step out, they bring you into a theater for a quick video, and then the screen walls suddenly slide up into the ceiling, instantly revealing the live skyline in front of you. From the top, Lower Manhattan sits right below your feet. Financial District, Brooklyn, the rivers, bridges, and skyline stretch out in every direction. I kept wandering from one side of the observatory to the other because every single window gives you a completely different perspective of the city. A standard ticket cost me about $44. There are pricier options if you want to skip the lines, but the regular ticket gives you full access to the main observatory decks on floors 100 through 102, which was all I needed. 9/11 Museum. Instead of heading right back into the city, I decided to go underground and bought a $36 ticket to the museum. The memorial gives you names, the museum gives you stories. Through photographs, everyday personal belongings, and family accounts, the exhibits put faces and voices to the people you were just reading about outside. The audio stations are what stopped me in my tracks. Hearing people tell their own stories in real time is entirely different from looking at an artifact. A photograph captures a moment, but a recorded voice anchors you to the spot. One of the largest spaces inside is the Foundation Hall, which houses massive, preserved remnants of the original site, including the giant slurry wall that held back the Hudson River. It's an imposing engineering feat to look at, but even in a space that massive, the small, individual human details are what actually stay with you. You'll need way more time here than you think. It took me nearly 3 hours to get through all of it because you just can't rush through an exhibit like this. Spending that much time sitting with those stories leaves you with a heavy, quiet ache that follows you right back out onto the plaza. Late afternoon, Brookfield Place and the Winter Garden. After the museum, I needed a break from exhibits and monuments, so I headed down to the waterfront at Brookfield Place. The Hudson River runs right alongside it, and just stepping out by the water feels like a complete reset. Ferries cross back and forth, boats move up the river, and New Jersey lines the shoreline. After a day spent trapped in narrow skyscraper-lined streets, it was great to finally have some open space and look at something other than concrete. When you step inside, you hit the Winter Garden, a massive glass pavilion with 16 giant 40-foot palm trees growing right out of the marble floor. The architecture's incredible. The entire roof is a 10-story glass vault supported by white steel arches. Because it's entirely enclosed in glass, natural sunlight floods the whole space and reflects off the marble. It completely breaks the illusion of the city, making it easy to forget that Wall Street and the chaotic energy of the Financial District are just a short walk away. Insider tip: if you're hungry, skip the ground floor restaurants and head up to the second floor to Hudson Eats. It's an upscale food hall with everything from sushi to tacos, but the real draw is the seating area. It has massive floor-to-ceiling windows that look directly out over the marina and the Statue of Liberty. Evening, Staten Island Ferry. By evening, I left the sidewalks behind and hopped on the Staten Island Ferry. The ride across the harbor takes about 25 minutes, costs absolutely nothing, and gives you some of the best views of the city. The second you get through the doors, you have to run to grab a spot right on the open deck. That's where you want to be because as the boat pulls away, the lower Manhattan skyline opens up behind you. One World Trade Center stands out completely over the older Financial District skyscrapers, and before long, the Statue of Liberty comes right up on the right side. You get close enough for a completely unobstructed shot, which makes the whole trip worth it for that view alone. The best part is that you're skipping the artificial tourist bubble entirely. This is a real, working piece of the city that carries millions of commuters a year, so you just get to blend in on deck with everyday New Yorkers heading home after work. For a free ride across the water, this is something you don't want to miss. Insider tip: to beat the crowds, avoid the weekday commuter rush between 4 p.m. and 6:30 p.m., and make sure to head straight to the starboard side, the right side of the boat, or the back deck for the best view of the Statue of Liberty as you sail toward Staten Island. Useful info for spending a day in the Financial District. Best time to visit the Financial District. When I was planning this day, I knew everything came down to weather. You're entirely at the mercy of the elements out there, which is why hitting Lower Manhattan in May or October is the way to go. The weather sits comfortably between 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 15 to 25 degrees Celsius, perfect for spending the day entirely on foot. If you want to try to push this walk into July or August, the summer heat gets trapped in those narrow Wall Street stone canyons, making the midday stretch pretty exhausting. Winter cuts down on the crowds drastically, meaning you get places like the 9/11 Memorial Plaza with a fraction of the usual visitors. The only real downside is the freezing harbor wind, so by the time you get to the evening ferry ride, you'll be abandoning the open deck pretty fast to stay inside the heated cabin. Airport tips. I'd highly recommend flying into either LaGuardia or JFK. LaGuardia sits closest to Lower Manhattan, meaning you get the fastest drive into the city. JFK is a bit further out, but it's unbeatable for international flight options. A taxi from LaGuardia takes about 30 to 45 minutes to reach the Financial District, costing between $35 and $60. JFK takes closer to an hour, and cabs charge a flat rate that totals around $85 to $100 once you include tolls and tips. If you want to save cash, taking the air train and subway costs just $11. It's the cheapest route and completely bypasses highway traffic. Newark is a solid backup if you spot a killer flight deal. The commute takes a bit longer, but it's not a massive headache, so don't pay extra just to avoid it. Where to stay? You definitely don't need to overpay to sleep right next to Wall Street to make this itinerary work. Staying anywhere in the Financial District, Tribeca, Battery Park City, or even Chinatown keeps you close enough to easily walk to the Charging Bull in the morning. The Financial District itself puts you right in the center of the historic architecture, with mid-range hotels generally sitting between $250 and $450, though the neighborhood gets pretty quiet at night. Battery Park City offers a fantastic relaxed waterfront option where luxury properties easily clear $500 a night. If you want to save some cash, Chinatown's your best value spot nearby with budget-friendly rooms running around $150 to $250, keeping you surrounded by incredible food. If you want to splurge, Tribeca sits just to the north, offering an upscale, trendy neighborhood vibe. How to get around? The best part about this day is how effortlessly everything connects. Since the Financial District, the 9/11 Memorial, and the Battery Park Ferry Terminal are packed so close together, you'll spend most of your time actually exploring rather than staring at transit maps. The streets down here are winding, historic, and completely compact, making it incredibly easy to just move from one landmark straight to the next entirely on foot. Whenever you need to cross a larger distance or head back to your hotel, the subway stations down here are everywhere. Huge transit hubs like the Oculus are right on your path, and instead of fumbling with ticket machines, you can just tap your phone or credit card at the turnstile to pay the $3 fare. Where to eat? Lower Manhattan's food scene is absolutely booming right now. The neighborhood has evolved far beyond quick lunch spots for office workers, and you can easily find everything from historic taverns to high-end dining tucked into stunning skyscrapers. For a classic New York experience that feels like stepping out onto a movie set, head to Frances Tavern. It's one of the oldest standing bars in the country. George Washington literally gave a farewell speech here, and they serve up fantastic, hearty pub food and great beers. Expect a standard lunch or dinner to run you between $30 and $50 a person. If you want a complete shift in vibe, check out Crown Shy. Located in the lobby of a stunning Art Deco tower, it completely skips the stuffy fine dining rules for a high-energy space with great music and amazing sharing plates. Depending on how many dishes you order, the bill usually lands between $75 and $110 per person. For an incredible plant-based option, book a table at Planta Queen. It's a gorgeous hot spot right by the water that serves an entirely vegan menu inspired by Asian night markets, turning out mind-blowing sushi rolls, dumplings, and noodles that even meat-eaters obsess over. Eating here will usually cost you about $45 to $70 a head. Sifting through so many layers of the past while surrounded by the modern energy of the city completely changes how you look at these blocks. I hope tagging along on this journey convinced you that the Financial District is a living, breathing community that's absolutely worth exploring. If you enjoyed the ride, make sure to like and subscribe for more travel guides. Also, if you're looking to explore even further, check out my ultimate New York bucket list video right here.